The flight attendant's smile fell right off her face. And the guy who'd spent 20 minutes insisting I didn't belong in first class blinked like he'd just realized he'd picked the wrong black teenager to lecture about assigned seating. You know what I mean. Let me back up a sec. It started that Atlanta morning that smells like jet fuel and cinnamon pretzels, the terminal humming with rolling suitcases and half-awake announcements. Ticket to New York warm in my palm because I kept checking it like proof. Chin flicking toward economy, and I smiled like my father taught me. Even and steady, slid my ID and the ticket across the counter. No, ma'am. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. She softened at my name like it suddenly meant something. Of course, Mr. Ellison, she said. And the apology didn't quite make it to her eyes. My father's voice rides with me on days like that. Malcolm Ellison, 6'3". Built an airline called Horizon Skyways out of grit and air and a borrowed hangar. He used to say, people will see your skin before they see your seat. Your job isn't to get angry. It's to be undeniable. So I boarded early, slid into 2A, stowed my bag, opened the notes for the meeting I was tagging along to. Observe, learn, don't talk too much. That was the plan. Then he climbed aboard, Gregory Harlan. 50s, silver hair that costs more than a haircut, suit like a quiet threat. Pointing at my shoulder like he was instructing a lab tech. I'm in 2A, I said, calm. You're 3C, sir. He looked right past my ticket to the invisible rule he believed in. I meant you're in the wrong section. This is first class. And if you've ever felt a sentence land in your chest like a thumb on a bruise, you know the heat that rises next. He waved a flight attendant over. Melissa, name tag shining like she loves a policy, and she smiled at him, not at me. Do you have your boarding pass, sir? She asked me, then my ID too. Like it might confess a different story if she stared hard enough. She finally nodded. Everything seems in order, and somehow still made it sound like a surprise. Gregory wasn't done, though. Run it again, he told her, then leaned closer like he was doing me a favor by keeping his voice down. I paid $3,000 to be comfortable up here. Surely there's a seat in coach where he'd be more appropriate. The way the word appropriate curled in his mouth was the point where the air got heavy, heads turned, and slid away. A black woman in a razor-sharp suit across the aisle watched like she'd seen this movie too many times. I breathed, counted 3, then said what I said. My family owns most of this airline. I said it like a fact in a spreadsheet. Horizon Skyways is an Ellison company. Melissa froze, Gregory's color drained. And for a beat, it was only the soft click of someone's phone camera somewhere behind me. Impossible, he stammered. So I held up my phone, Dad on speed dial. And as if on cue the screen lit. You on 1867? My father asked when I answered, voice warm enough to steady me and iron enough to slice steel. There's a little confusion about my seat, I said. Handled, he said, which is Dad for I'll be tracking this in 10 minutes. Remember who you are, always, I told him. And hung up into an aisle where Melissa suddenly discovered a new tone she'd never used with me before. Mr. Ellison, can I bring you anything? Just the same service as everyone else, I said. Because the turbulence hit like a gravel road, seat belts chimed, drinks trembled. Gregory went from granite to green in 10 minutes. His water sloshed into his lap, and he let out this little sound like the air had betrayed him. And I won't lie, some part of me felt the poetry, but I don't root for people to suffer. The woman across the aisle, the one who'd clocked the whole thing, slipped into the empty seat beside me. Dana Cole, she whispered, Cole Media, handshake quick and dry. Your father's on my board's short list of men who changed the game. We traded 2 sentences that said a lot. Masks didn't drop, but the fear did. And out of nowhere Gregory leaned across, whisper hissed, did you arrange this? I just stared because the logic jump was Olympic. You think I grounded a jet to teach you a lesson, I said, and before he could invent a conspiracy a little boy behind me started crying. That panicked hiccup cry kids do when the grown-ups aren't convincing. I turned. Hey buddy, I'm Jordan, you like maps. I keep a stress ball shaped like the earth in my bag, don't judge me. And I pressed it into his hands. Planes are built to handle way worse than this. Feels bumpy, but it's like potholes in the sky. His mom mouthed thank you, and I swear the cabin inhaled together. We hit Charlotte under a sky that looked like bruised steel, lights of the trucks strobing the windows. That's where the phones really started singing. The video from boarding was already online, angle from 3 rows back. Captioned with a hashtag I know too well. Hashtag first class while black. And you could feel the temperature of the room change as people recognized me, recognized Greg, recognized a story they'd been taught to doubt unless it came with footage. Dana sat with me, slid a card across the table without ceremony. We run a fellowship for young black founders. Call me. My phone buzzed again. Dad, I'm diverting to Charlotte, he said. I was meeting you in New York, but I'd rather shake a few hands here. And I knew what that meant. Not theater, not show. Just my father's belief that you don't outsource accountability. Squeezed the back of my neck like he did when I was 8 and scored an U12 game. Then he turned to Gregory, whose courage had leaked out his shoes. Mr. Harlan, Dad said. Voice conversational and unyielding. We're due to meet tomorrow about a piece of our pension fund. Funny thing. Today I watched a man tell my son he didn't belong on my airplane. He said they never said black. They never had to. And then he said the line I've heard at our dinner table my whole life. The answer to ugliness is excellence. He likes to say, and if that sounds corny, you've never watched a man manifest buses on a tarmac in a thunderstorm. Gregory asked for a private word. Dad waved me to stay. He delivered an apology that had clean edges like it came from a PR firm. Then a messy truth slipped out. His firm, Harlan Capital, was pitching us hard for a $300 million mandate. I could have said we were done, door closed, lesson taught. But my father raised me on a different kind of math, so I said, what if this is a hinge instead of a hammer? He looked at me and let me talk. Set up a fund for minority founders in transport, real money, measurable outcomes. Change your hiring pipeline and your leadership slate with deadlines. Gregory's face did a strange thing, somewhere between alarm and relief. That's substantial, he said. So is the fee stream you want, I said, half unsure if they could touch anything. I sat across from an elderly couple who told me about Eastern Airlines back when passengers dressed up and racism was printed, not coded. About how bias hides inside words like fit and comfort, and I watched a man who thought manners were the same as decency realize they aren't. We touched down at LaGuardia close to midnight. Rain combing the runway lights into silver threads. Dad shook hands all the way down the aisle. Dana squeezed my shoulder. Call me, Jordan. Doors are open if you walk through. Gregory waited till the end. I'll meet those conditions, he said. Not to save a deal, because I don't want to be the man I was at the gate. I nodded. I'll believe it when the interns do. And he took that hit like he knew he'd earned it. 6 months later, I stood in a glass conference room at Horizon HQ. 18 kids from the city staring up at me like I was a future they hadn't known how to picture. Welcome to the first class of Horizon Scholars, I said, voice steady, hands only shaking a little. The program was built on money Harlan Capital wired before the press conference ink dried. Internships, mentorships, travel stipends. The boring nuts and bolts that widen narrow roads. Gregory sat in the back row, quiet, different somehow. He'd hired 2 black VPs, not tokens, killers. He'd started showing up at barbershop roundtables and listening more than he spoke. And if you're wondering if people can change, I don't give out gold stars. I count seats filled and checks written and kids who stop scanning rooms for exits, 2 years after that, I was on a Horizon flight to Chicago, slid into 2A out of habit. A young white guy paused. You're Jordan Ellison, right? The video. I braced. He stuck out his hand. I caught myself doing it last month, doubting a colleague's title because of how she looked. Heard your dad's words in my head and shut up. Thanks. He walked on red-faced, and I stared out at a sky the color of fresh aluminum, thinking about hinges and hammers, about how some days you pick and some days the world picks for you. We landed into that flat Midwestern light that makes the runway shimmer, and I thought about the gate in Atlanta, about a boy with an earth ball in his fist, about a man who thought first class was an address reserved for him, about my father shaking his system until the screws loosened. Tell me this. If you were me in 2A, do you swing the hammer or build the hinge? Do you shut a door or demand it be widened? Because both feel good in the moment, but only one changes who gets to walk through next. If you've got to take on where the line sits, what's justice? What's grace? What's too soft or too hard? Drop it and defend it. Tell me whether Gregory deserved a lifetime ban or a second chance with strings. Whether corporate promises mean anything without pressure from people, and whether excellence is a fair burden to place on the shoulders of kids who didn't ask to carry it. I'm listening. And so are a lot of people who think they already know the answers.